Welcome back, everybody, to the Corridor podcast. Today we have Wish Bakhshi. He is the director of AI at Corridor and also a principal at which company was it? Capital Power. And today we've invited him back to the channel to discuss AI and startup AI and just AI as a whole. So if you have any interest in AI, this is the man you want to listen to. So let's get started. First of all, welcome to the channel, Wish. So, Wish, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you started, how you even came out to being in the world of AI?
Good question. My journey started about 12 years ago. Started as a quant, so hedge fund trading, stuff like that. Technically, my training is in statistics.
In finance, or was it in oil and gas?
Finance.
Finance.
Something very similar to high-frequency trading algorithms. My technical background is in statistics and quantitative economics. Did that for half a decade, then decided to make a pivot because machine learning, statistical learning, it's quite similar. Actually, machine learning is basically statistical learning. So we decided to pause my wedding. Had to convince my wife, go back to school.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, not at all, sir. We were engaged at least, so that's kind of good. And then we decided that I'm going to go back to school and finish my computer science degree as well at the University of Calgary. Came out, was actually going to be for a VC based out of Austin, Texas. COVID hit.
Everybody in this channel knows how much we love Austin. Okay. So just the background, Wish and I have actually been friends since high school. So him and I, he was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. So him and I are incredibly tight. But one of the biggest things was I was trying so hard to convince this man to go to Austin, and you finally did it, and you liked it. Life-changing. All right, sorry, continue.
You might have to go there permanently. Who knows? Who knows where life takes you, right?
You know me. I'm always down. Austin, you go, I go.
Yeah. I mean, home prices are down 30% this year, so
very nice.
Okay. It might be a good time to buy.
Yeah. Okay.
So all right. You're interested in buying a mansion?
I'm very interested in buying a mansion.
You're talking about a pool.
Who is it? Honestly, in Austin, everywhere, it's always a pool.
Yeah, that's true.
It's standard there.
Anywhere but Calgary.
Yeah, anywhere but Calgary.
Calgary's awesome. I think Calgary's the Austin of Canada. Right?
That's fair.
Yeah. Anyways, going back to my journey, decided to go back, get my comp sci degree as well. Was going to start parachuting into VCs. COVID hit. Decided to actually stay in Calgary. Probably the best decision in my life that I made before making a pivot. Started working at Capital Power. Now I manage 3 portfolios. One is for thermal, power plants, asset optimization for wind turbines and solar assets. And the third one is I manage a portfolio of commodity trading algorithms. So basically how building AI algorithms that can basically trade or execute augmentation tools that will leverage off big data to basically make predictions for the traders to utilize.
Right. Yeah. So, we, you know this very well. At Corridor, we primarily focus on founders, right? And the journey of just starting a company from nothing to trying to take it somewhere. And AI is one of those buzzwords. And you and I have talked about this, and it agitates both of us in its own way. And people kind of refer to it as if it's as if it's like this carte blanche, like you just kind of throw it into a sentence. So what is the difference in a true AI, like an actual AI startup versus a AI startup that just calls themselves AI?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess the fundamental question, are you a SaaS company or AI as a service company?
Right. Meaning
that if you're a SaaS company and your secondary tier services leverage big data to provide some feature parity or services that kind of piggyback off the additional data set that you're gathering from your customer base, then you're a SaaS company. And the machine learning algorithms don't have to be very complex. You tackle the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
If you're AI as a service company, you're now in a different league, right?
Well, now you're competing against the Googles, the Amazons, the IBMs,
Exactly.
The Watson.
The challenge is you have to have. Well, here's the let's just take a step back. Here's the challenge with AI. The upfront cost for AI, unlike software, is quite different.
Right.
Which is, first of all, most of the machine learning problem statements that you have, they are R&D experiments, meaning that
Right.
unlike software development, where when you're rolling out a feature for an app, you know that there is a path of known. You're going to get that feature rolled out in some shape or form. In machine learning and AI, that's not the case. So you might hire a data scientist to kind of experiment with a data set, and you don't even know in 6 months or 8 months if there's going to be a viable solution, right?
Right.
You don't have you have a POC, but you don't have an MVP, and you don't have a product life cycle.
And that's the thing, it takes data, right? And I think a lot of people that have come to us in the startup world, they're like, yeah, I want to build this AI aspect to my app, and I kind of sit there and I go, okay, explain that to me, because you need data for that. You need lots of data for that, right? For even AI to be anywhere near efficient. And 99%, I won't say 99, but like 90% of the time when they explain to me what it is they want to achieve, it's really an algorithm, not an AI, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, the simplest tool will get the job done.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are lots of low-hanging fruit. It's a heuristic. It's a measurement. It's an algorithm that's basically getting the job done for you. Now, if you want to call a backend that runs on Excel with an if-then statement as an AI, sure.
Yeah.
The definition is quite loose, but it's not a sophisticated AI. It's not a sophisticated machine learning model. I have trouble saying AI because AI is a very broad statement, but I'll stick to machine learning.
Yeah.
Or statistical learning. But most of the time,
ML, right?
ML, yeah. Like most of the times, the statistical models will get the job done, in my opinion.
Yes.
But
and that's what AI is based on, a statistical modeling, right?
Yeah. Like machine learning is basically statisticals, right? So
yeah.
A lot of these algorithms.
Hence your background. Your background is statistics and machine learning.
Exactly. So. Yeah. Like computer science and stats is my background. I think that's kind of where it allows you to have first principle thinking. But like all these algorithms that we're utilizing in today's day and age, besides certain ones like GANs, they were all written back in the 1980s and 1990s.
Right.
Backpropagation, which is the fundamental of neural net, was written, I believe, the white paper was written in the 1990s, I believe.
Wow.
So
this idea was out there already.
Nobody believed in it, and it's called the AI winter, where
of course
things picked up, and then after that they built some rule-based systems, some semantic modeling, and then after that everything fell through, and then we had like this thing called the AI winter. But then what happened was you had big compute, right? With big data came big compute, and then suddenly these hyperscalers like GCP, AWS, and Azure allowed you to scale up at a scale that nobody could think about on pennies on the dollar. Right now, for example, some of the models that I deployed 5 years ago used to be considered superclusters or supercomputers. Now, within 5 lines of code and basically 10 clicks on a GUI,
you got yourself the same.
I have a computer equivalent to a supercomputer 10, 15 years ago.
And data is a lot more available it is today than it was in the 1990s, right? It's a lot easier to access data, weather patterns.
There's a price to it.
Of course. I mean, data is not cheap.
No.
You know what? We always tell our customers, we work with a bunch of startups, obviously, but the first thing I always tell them is data is your business, not the code. The code is meaningless, and you and I know this from ArriveCan. A bunch of people copied the ArriveCan code in over a weekend, right? It's not hard to copy code. It's the data that really matters, because that's your value.
I think it's a little bit more. So Andrew, who's one of the founders of democratizing AI, he has like this new terminology that's called data-centric AI. So before,
which is funny because data-centric, like usually businesses are always like, we're data-centric, we're data-centric.
But he's pushing for this, meaning that, going back to that question of you need lots of data, that understanding is fundamentally changing now, that you don't need lots of data. You need good data. You need structured data, not unstructured data, meaning that, one of the cool things about neural nets is that you can give it a lot of data, right? And then it'll make sense of it. But is that the best way computationally and cost effectiveness? Probably not. The answer would be definitely not. What Andrew is arguing for is let's just build a formulaic approach to building machine learning models, and the best thing to do is start with the data first,
right,
and provide it some structure that in such a shape or form that you don't need lots of it, right?
right.
And then once you do that, then
So streamline it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that there's ways of doing it. The problem is that organizations have big budgets when you throw in words like data science or AI. Yeah. The most important role in an organization, in my opinion, and probably the most overlooked, underappreciated, least rewarding role is something called a data engineer. Right? So a data engineer basically is your first point of contact. That basically builds the entire tool set.
So what's the difference between a data scientist and a data engineer? Because one of the things I know about is data science was actually developed at Facebook. Mm-hmm. They were the first to create a data scientist.
Chamath Palihapitiya to basically change the data analyst role.
Yeah, exactly, data scientist. Yeah. So is a data scientist essentially a data analyst? No. Okay. So what's the difference from a data scientist to a data engineer?
A data scientist. Okay, a data scientist is basically somebody who has a quant background, right? So they're either an SME, subject matter expert, who have some fundamental understanding of how to code, and they're called citizen data scientists, meaning that they don't probably come from a very strong mathematical or statistical background, but they understand the business,
right?
And they're smart enough to figure out how to code, take some online courses, and build some very basic models, right? And a lot of times
these are data scientists.
Yeah, I mean, it's citizen data scientists.
Citizen.
The next level are I would say the mature data scientists, which are physicists. They make really good data scientists, statisticians.
Because they're building formulas, right?
Exactly.
They're building incredibly advanced algorithms.
Yeah, exactly. And and then mathematicians, computer scientists, obviously. So they are basically using their mathematical background, their STEM background, to understand the data, the business use case, and then building very good, decent models that can perform at scale. Right?
It's amazing how so many people don't recognize computers and software with math. Mm-hmm. I would honestly say no one puts those two together, but it's so tightly weaved together.
Well, computer science is actually and stats too. There are actually divisions of math, right?
Right.
They were created in those divisions.
Yeah.
But most people don't actually think about it.
They don't think about it.
I mean, computer science. When I did my grad, there was a lot of math. There was a course called discrete mathematics.
Well, fundamentals
is proofs. Yeah, just writing proofs, right? So time complexity and stuff like that. In a way, you take lots of logic math courses that are not taught even in math majors.
Yeah,
they're very unique, very niche courses.
Yeah, most people just think of it as like just throwing an F statement.
It's computer science, software engineering, IT, IS, all interchangeable. Which is kind of like a sad state of affairs, but I think it's changing a little bit.
Yeah, fair. So that's a data scientist. What's a data engineer?
So a data engineer is basically your first point of contact, like I was saying. So essentially what a data engineer does is provide structure to your data. So there's an entire process called ETL and ELT. So ETL is extract, transform, and load, and ELT is extract, load, and transform. They're fundamentally the same things, but just in a different order. So essentially what they do is they take data that's coming to, let's just say, on-prem servers, right?
Okay.
And they've been sitting there for a while. And one of the challenges that you have with on-prem servers is that you can't directly just build machine learning models off of them.
Right.
And the reason being is because they are transactional systems, something called OLTP systems. And if you start building machine learning models that are very compute heavy based on these servers, you're going to crash those servers.
Obviously, yeah.
And then the business case kind of goes down the drain. So what you do is you take those OLTP server data and you turn it into something called OLAP, which is analytical processing servers or databases. So Snowflake, for example, is one case, right? So you move the data over there. Azure Synapse is another word. Databricks is doing it too. So these are on hyperscalers. You don't have to do it all within hyperscalers. So a data engineer will actually pair up with a data scientist and an SME, make sense of the data, and say, okay, you know what? You don't have to do the heavy lifting. I'll do it. And I'll put it in a place where you can leverage and do whatever you want with it.
So they're literally your gatekeeper to the data being clean and organized and just ready for you to utilize in any way that the business sees fit.
Exactly. Yeah. So like everybody from, SME reporting, BI, business intelligence reports, machine learning analytics, and the whole shebang is actually, they're usually leveraging data engineers to build their reports.
And that's one of the issues, right? Is like whenever you're trying to utilize AI, it's mostly because like you could probably just throw it into an AI machine and get it what you want, but it's the fact that the data is dirty, right? So the clean data is probably, I would say, I don't know, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I would say is the number one most important thing, having clean data.
I would say so, yes. But the word clean is very relative, right?
Right.
So, for example, a data engineer might do some aggregations and averages to the data set, and the data scientist would say, no, don't do that. I want the raw data. I'll do the stuff. I just want a target location, right? So that's where the world of like data warehousing, data lakes, this new format called Lakehouse, which is Delta Lakes, has come in.
Yeah.
And essentially, what they're doing is the data engineer will say, okay, fine, I won't provide structure to it, but I'll provide a target location where you can leverage and do whatever
you want,
interpolations that you want to do, aggregations, normalization, standardization, whatever format you want to do, you'll do it. The other step is documentation. So for example, the SME, the data scientist, and the data engineer will pair up, and then the data scientist will be like, in this case, when you're providing it, just aggregate it for me in this space. So there's a logic that is documented, and then when the data scientist begins modeling, they know exactly what kind of assumptions have been made by the data engineer
through the documentation.
Yeah, for the downstream ingestion process.
And this is why you're saying it's actually quite heavy up front for AI, because you truly have to have this entire team build out the model, build out everything, and you haven't even gone to the business case yet. Like you're just kind of predicting at that point still, right? Yeah. And that's on top of building the platform or whatever it is that you're trying to build. So you're really building two different products. You're building the AI itself, and you're building the platform.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very challenging thing. That's why a lot of times when I do consulting, I say, hey, write down 5 use cases that you have.
Yeah.
Let's hone it down and then locate the data, right? If you don't have the data, let's just go visit and say, okay, out of the 5 use cases, only one of them has the data that we can work with, and we'll do it. Generally speaking, I like the other way around, which is, go find the data first and then build the use cases around it, because your hit rate is much higher that way.
Right.
But a lot of times, because organizations have specific use cases that they have in mind, and maybe they got funding approved by not the regulators, sorry, like some of the grants that come out.
Right. Yeah.
So essentially,
grants are bigger in Canada than it is in the States. Like they don't really have that many grants down there.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless you were doing a PhD dissertation.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But generally speaking, like, you want to find the data first, right? And then when you find the data, you say, okay, I have 5 sets of data sets. Let's try to figure out the use cases based on this. And then after that, you build down like maybe 3 out of the 5 have a success, story, and then one of them sees the light of day. Right. Whereas if you go the other way around and you have 5 use cases, and you go down and you find the data set for one. And then now one fails 6 months downstream, you have a failure rate of 100%.
Right. Yeah. That's actually a very good point. That's a very interesting approach. One of the biggest things I would say, as founders, and that's because we and you communicate directly with them, is what would you like? They all come to you and say, "I have this AI idea," and you say, "Okay, come up with the 5 business cases." What do you do in the situation where you have founders come to you and they're misinformed about what AI can do, right? Like, what's the top 2 things that you get where you're like, I don't know where you learned that, but that's completely misinformed. You're misinformed.
Yeah, I think the most misinformed thing is that a lot of times you can just build stuff off of open source.
Yeah. Especially with AI.
Yeah, just because you have open source libraries doesn't mean that you can utilize them, because you don't have the compute.
Right. Yeah.
So that's where the biggest gap is, because like lots of these libraries that are out there, like TensorFlow or PyTorch, for example, they allow you to scale up, and it's all open source. But if you're building a neural net, for example, a sophisticated one, you're going to require a nice capital intensive approach of like having good compute, having lots of data, having a structured approach to it. A lot of the founders have an understanding that, hey, we got funding approved. this is all we need is like a data set, and somebody can build it off of a Jupyter notebook on a desktop.
Right.
And that almost always like is not the right way of doing things, because even if you, let's just say hypothetically, let's entertain the idea that you're able to build something off of a Jupyter notebook on your desktop, a Mac, whatever.
Yeah.
You still got to productionize it.
Yes.
Right. You still got to scale it, and that's where the ROI of your machine learning models will come. But if you haven't said any of that, you're not going to be able to succeed, right? Yeah. And then that's where there's a famous saying where only 20% of data science projects in the world see light of day. Because of this problem where they work in silos, right? And then they go, oh, hey, it's go-to-market time. We have a success story from a model development standpoint. We're going to productionize it. And then everything falls apart because
it's very specific.
You have absolutely no architecture or framework to build it. So the framework that it builds around this is called MLOps.
So it's basically building a house, the walls, but you forgot the infrastructure or the framing.
Foundation. The foundation. So you need the foundation first.
Yeah.
And then after that, you start building it through, and then you have a high success rate. Like MLOps is basically DevOps on steroids. That's my phrasing, right? So everything that DevOps is software engineering, which is like 20, 30 years of tried and tested practice. Yeah. You're taking that, and then you're sprinkling in machine learning specific use cases, best practices on there. So there's something called concept drift, data drift, continuous training. So you have CI/CD, CT. These are all things that have just come to light in the last 2 to 3 years. And then doing that.
And due to the popularity of AI, right?
Yeah. But the problem is that if you have citizen data scientists building these models, and then it's go-to-market time, they absolutely, because they don't have fundamental understanding of what dev versus prod means, or software engineering practice are, they really struggle to kind of bridge the gap. And for example, a software engineer will come knocking on the door and say, hey, can you build a REST API service for this so that I can run the predict functions? There's a complete blocker over there being like, I have no understanding of what you're talking about, right? Or it's just saying hey, can you just, as simple as I've seen this a lot of times, can you just do code versioning on Git? Right?
Of course.
And then they just struggle because they have absolutely no understanding of how Git works, which is very, very, the very first things you're taught in software engineering.
Yeah. So my thing, for us, some of the things that we've seen from our end is honestly, it's the lack of understanding of AI, right? You deal with a little more engineers when you get consulted in. Even when we consult with you, it's, we've already proven the model. Okay, now how do we execute? On our side, what we see all the time is truly misunderstood or misunderstanding of what AI is. And so I'll give you two examples. One was, this company was like, I want this AI, basically a search function that will automatically pull in my results based on set data. Okay, we said, okay, so we need to understand the question. No, just write what ifs, right? And so it's exactly what you said earlier. That's I guess you can call it AI because it's picking up keywords and bringing in information, but it's not AI. It's not true AI, right? It's not machine learning. It's not truly understanding what you're asking it and actually giving you a result based on your question. And then there was another situation where, the customer was basically like, hey, I want the AI to organize the data and then spit out analytics. And I'm like, well, if we can organize AI if we can organize the data with AI, you'd be a billionaire right now, right? So it's just that kind of oversimplification is really how I like to say it. Where the media has really pushed that oversimplification of AI to make it understandable or consumable, but that also relates to now I have this idea and it's definitely possible because I can do it. And what I always explain to people is what you can do is problem solve, right? And that's what we're really good at as humans, whereas machines struggle with that, right? It takes, let's take driving as a really good example. What are your thoughts on that actually? Automated driving right now is almost at pause because of the challenges they keep running in with.
Depends, right? A lot of Tesla is moving away from the standard best practices and coming up for their own CV technology. And I think Elon Musk has driven the way. It's definitely not there.
Yeah.
Right? Because of so many little nuances and edge cases. But
So many edge
it's
cases.
getting there. I don't think it's going to be as people thought it would be like fully present in the next 5 years.
I think
or
they
so.
said stage 5 within 5 years, and that's like not.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very challenging to do, but who knows, right? These technologies move at such revolutionary paces.
True.
I just don't contest it anymore.
Yeah. You're just waiting at this point.
Yeah, like, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. I mean, Tesla's autopilot is actually pretty decent. But
You still have to pay attention though. A lot of people don't realize that
Yeah.
either, right? They're just kind of like, yeah, it's got it.
yeah,
It's like on a highway, maybe it's a
Yeah.
little more efficient than the road.
yeah. I mean, Tesla is pretty. I would say is on the cutting edge, leading the way. Elon understands. I think I'm on the same page as Elon on a lot of things. Even his AGI comments are pretty relevant the way I kind of see it. Just
Mhm.
because the democratization of AI, what 5 years or 6 years ago used to be unfathomable today is like just there at your fingertips, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, look at DALL-E 2. You have stable diffusion models, which is text to text to image. Now you have Facebook releasing. I think it was Facebook that released
And that's
Text
pulling
to
in its
video.
own controversies
exactly.
right now.
It's piggybacking off of other people's hard work. For
Yeah.
example.
But the results are insane.
And you get the results in 2 to 3 seconds, depending on how sophisticated of a compute.
Like
you
I
use
think
it.
I was watching your story. I think it was, and you had done with your dogs.
Yeah.
And the results, you're just kind of like looking at that. You're like, how did you even like?
Yeah, those responses came out in 5 seconds. Those paintings.
That's
in
insane.
high res.
That's insane. Do you still have those pictures?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll make sure I post those pictures so everybody can see what the computer did. But you basically searched Rottweiler and Pitbull. Like you gave a very minimalistic.
Yeah, I said Rottweiler, Pitbull, Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, yeah, and it just
painted my. I mean, not my dogs, but Rottweiler and Blue Nose Pitbull in a Van Gogh format in like 5 seconds, and it looked very professional actually.
And you look at that and you go, okay, I get it. I see the controversy,
Yeah.
but man, does this look good? And like,
Yeah,
that's insane. Right?
I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, I just don't contest. Like, you could say right now that.
Like, do you think graphic designers are next? Because now, like, with that model, you can literally be like, I'm looking for an ad. Because I think, who is it? Microsoft came out with like a copy version of the graphic where you just tell it what you want for your ad, and it'll just create it.
And I think there's a misunderstanding of these tools that are coming out. So they are augmentation technologies,
Right.
meaning that the people that benefit the most out of these things, for example, OpenAI, for example, partnering up with Microsoft, training a model that basically, learned all the entire GitHub repository, the open source, right? And people are quite offended about it. I think rightfully so, because it goes against the spirit of open source. But generally speaking, that augmentation tool that basically spurts out code for you when you just write in English, say, hey, like,
This is what I'm looking for.
create an Angular dev app for me or something like that. It just writes the code for you. The way I kind of look at it is saying, yeah, that's like the code and the setup is like the most tedious part if you're a software dev.
Correct.
Right? It's like the stuff that you always have to do over and over again and write that code.
So I tell that to people all the time.
And in that scenario, I think it's great. The people who are going to benefit the most from these things are going to be software engineers and people like that, because a lot of
no average Joe is going to be able to use that. I mean, at the end of the day.
I mean, stuff when I'm doing like data science and data engineering, the complex logic that I use is just cannot be replicated because it's so unique to every single business use case, right?
Yeah.
The edge cases scenarios that you have to handle. I just think creativity is required there, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to understand the business at its core.
Yes.
And
that's problem solving.
Yeah, it is.
And again, that's coming back to a computer cannot do it as well as a human can.
Yeah, for now.
For now. Yeah. I mean, everything is for now. I mean, I hope they take over, because if they take over, then I can just chill. Yeah. I can go retire at the beach. As long as they don't destroy the world, we're good.
Yeah, you have a better view than most people about these things, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I've been in technology for so long now, right? And for me, I've been in technology for 18 years? Like, since you've ever known me, pretty much, I've always been in technology, right? And so for me, I've never seen a negative. I've never taken technology as a negative approach.
Mm-hmm.
I actually end up always thinking I think it's humans that infect the technology. And so I've always taken an approach of a positive approach of what technology could do for us.
Right.
Especially at like an employee level. I actually posted this on LinkedIn where I think like government, for example, it's so old school. It's so backwards thinking, and they just throw humans at the problem.
Right.
Whereas if they just utilize some technology, they can actually make everybody more efficient, right? And they can, at the end of the day, make the government taxpayers more efficient.
Right.
Making, those social programs go a lot further, right? So I've always been a positive thinker of technology as a whole.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, there is always negatives to think about.
I mean,
like the Google going Sentinel. Like, do you believe that actually happened?
No, that was a software engineer just kind of blowing smoke. But
I think he was in love with it.
I think so,
if you heard the conversations, like,
yeah, I did. I read the script. So
yeah,
I'm not too worried about that. But going back to your point, like, technology. The only reason we're here so far as a human race is because technology has brought us here, right?
Correct.
And I think,
well, it was industrial revolution, then it went to the internet revolution. Now we're in the data revolution.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like next is quantum computers coming
Quantum
through,
computers.
right? I think the combination of AI, quantum computing, and specialized chips are probably going to solve a lot of our problems. I think I'm a strong believer in people actually get quite upset by this, or they don't believe it at least. But I say that I think in 20 to 25 years, we're going to be curing diseases faster than they, hit the human civilization.
100%.
And I think quantum computers kind of take you there. I mean, you don't even have to go as far as quantum computing. Look at AlphaFold, which is, allows you, like, solve the protein folding problem, right? Which is supposed to be a very hard thing to do. And it's used as a branch called reinforcement learning, deep reinforcement learning to do that. So I think we're,
because right now our machine learning, like true machine learning, like true AI, is limited by computing power still. Like we're able to do a lot today, but we're still limited by the computing power that we have in existence. And in my opinion, you're right. Quantum computing is going to unleash that because what's the
qubits?
It processes in qubits, right? And it's qubits is what 1 million of a terabyte.
I don't know about that, but I know that you can have 1 and 0 to exist simultaneously, right? So it solves that problem.
Exactly, right? So,
but it does not replace classical computers.
No, of course not. You're not going to have a quantum computer sitting in your desk. Maybe
it fundamentally cannot. Like a classical computer is still what it's best at.
Yeah.
There's something called NP complete problems in computer science, and those are some of the hardest problems there that a computer would take forever to do.
Yeah.
And it goes after Alan Turing. And quantum computing, a lot of those algorithms that are theoretically have an upper threshold or have very poor, it's called time complexity issues. Quantum computers actually solve for that.
Right.
So you use those two in parallel or in synergistically, but you don't replace one with the other. Quantum computers are not better than classical computers; they're just different.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. They're just they're literally the problem solvers.
Yeah.
That's what the whole quantum computing is designed for. So where do you see the biggest opportunity for like startups and AI? Is it finance? Is it healthcare? Because AI is being used a lot in healthcare and trying to detect like cancer and things like that. Where do you see the biggest opportunity, or where you see the AI of startups going? Right now, healthcare is like blowing up. I don't know if it's AI specific, but it's just healthcare as
well. I think healthcare is blowing up because you have a greater percentage of the baby boomers retiring.
Right.
They're going to be a significant burden on the healthcare system, and that's where whether we like it or not, your revenue basis is, right? Because population density globally is on the baby boomers, and they're all retiring or coming in that troubling period.
Which is what you're seeing today is a lot of baby boomers retired during COVID.
Yeah.
And so now there's a significant portion of jobs available.
Yeah.
So people are able to get into jobs. That's why our job unemployment has been so low, right?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. But I was talking more about the healthcare side. Was that the industry that's going to be expanding the most rapidly for the next 2 decades minimum, I would say, is healthcare.
Strictly because of the baby boomers.
Yeah,
more volume, more sales.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then more people means more money, more customer base. So I think that's kind of why that industry is expanding. And the other thing, you asked a question about like where should the startups and the founders go. I think because of stuff like AlphaFold being open sourced.
AlphaFold is the
protein solving problem.
Yeah.
Essentially, like it helps with pharmacology. Stuff that used to take a team of scientists at Pfizer to do probably a decade can be done at a very marginal cost with very low compute times and on an open source basis. So this is why I kind of think like I think cancer will be cured in the next 2 decades or so. But if you're a founder,
if you start throwing,
if you want to rock the industry and get like a 10x home run, I think the legacy industries are the best ones to aim for.
Construction.
Yeah, construction, commercial real estate, healthcare.
And to be honest, those are the industries we are getting the most traction on. Is construction. They're still hesitant. Like we can tell based on the startups that they're still pushing back. They're still paper based. But I always tell everybody this, even like the businesses, if you don't evolve and adopt technology in the next 5 years, in my opinion, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, that's a strong statement, but I can see it. Depends on which industry you're in, but.
Well, because so many people are moving towards technology.
Yeah.
So your competitors are going to have a huge leg up on you.
Yeah.
Productivity, efficiency. Their margins go higher because tech, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting laid off and people are like, but they're making better margins than ever. That's not because by accident. That's because they're embracing technology.
Yeah.
Right? Like look at the office spaces now. Like they're utilizing technology. And now they don't need as big a space because it's become hybrid work, right? So
digital transformation has suddenly become a real thing.
Yeah,
a lot of look at
COVID was the big catalyst for that.
Yeah, I think because suddenly you have to work from home.
Yeah,
and like Calgary probably being the most old school handshaking city
oil
in
and
Canada.
gas. Yeah,
just had to like innovate or adapt, and suddenly the only budgets, majority of the sector that saw expansion in the budget was IT/IS departments for digital transformation. For putting stuff on the cloud. So it just kind of like tells you, COVID expanded that work from home, technology base, cybersecurity became a huge problem.
What are your thoughts about cybersecurity and AI? Because AI is actually being used maliciously as well.
Yeah,
it's being used to hack and things like that. So what are your thoughts around that? It's going to happen. I know. It's regardless.
Most of the cybersecurity issues that arrive are actually not because of AI or hacks coming from tools. It's called social engineering.
Yeah.
Right. So
target internally.
Exactly. Go on LinkedIn. Find people, send them malicious emails. Click on that link. Most of the documentations and hacks that I've read about have come around that, like opening the wrong email, social engineering. Sending
the
coupons,
calls from India,
pretending to be your CEO, calls from India. The biggest one that I hear about that blows me away is the MFAs or the single sign-on, where you have to approve on your phone. And a lot of people, when cybersecurity teams are testing, they saw the MFA come in and they're sitting at a bar and they're saying, "Are you trying to log in?" And they'll click yes.
And that's a habit thing. I think that's a habit thing. There's no way that you're going to look at that and be like, yeah, I'm logging in. You're not even reading it.
I don't know.
think
you're just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. I'm just like,
I know, because
1 second of reflection will tell you you're not in front of your desk.
Yeah, Deanna is the same thing. She was saying how they did a test. Their IT team did a test, and yeah, you're right. It was literally like 50% failed.
Yeah, and it's
50%. That's a lot.
It's crazy, right? But like most of the cybersecurity issues come from there. So I don't even know how much AI can help there, or how much damage comes from AI.
Most of the time, put as much safety as you want.
Most of it is USB drives, right? Like
physical.
There's a famous test where people they will actually drop a USB drive, into an office to see if somebody like picks it up and plugs it into the laptop, right? That's one of the most common ways cybersecurity. When you hire a third-party cybersecurity,
that's insane.
Yeah, they'll actually throw the USB and they'll be like, "Let's see who picks it up and puts it on the computer." and a lot of people do.
Wow.
Instead of like just throwing it in the bin or giving it to IT.
You're totally right, because I feel like if I saw a USB on the floor, I'd be like, what is this?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just tackling human social
I mean, but it's
cues.
yeah, I mean, that's
Curiosity kills.
So I don't know if AI can help you with that or not. The only way you kind of, the social engineer, like one of the ways we can tackle the USB problem is just disable all the USB ports, right?
Yeah.
That only company-specific authorized USB ports will be recognized on those ports. But the other part is like, going on LinkedIn, doing social engineering, figuring out, and then the number of times when people get malicious emails saying, hey, CEOs pretending to, asking, hey, can you send me a bank draft?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to buy this ticket or something like that or whatever. And just the name says the CEO's name, but nobody bothers to click on the email and just see how, it's not the same person.
Yeah.
So it's just like, those kind of things is probably...
Humans are a lot easier to target than
And that almost always will be the case. So, I mean, AI, sure, can help you only so much.
Yeah. So, thank you for being here. And we're getting close to the end. It's been 40 minutes of amazing conversation. I always love talking to Wish. His perspective is always, we jokingly call him the AI researcher. Like he's fundamentally perfect on the research side. Wow. So
perfect is a strong statement. Perfect is a strong statement.
Even at our wedding, he gave a speech, and it was to the T, probably the best speech given at that. Not to everybody to give a great speech.
A lot of people will be watching this video. Probably don't want to throw them.
Yeah, no. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Wish, thank you for being here.
Thanks for
Hopefully,
having me.
we'll see what the comments are like. If you have any questions for Wish, please, leave your comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you guys then. Thank you guys all for watching.
Adios, guys.